If you think the feeling of skidding along the edge of an abyss exists only in movies, look at reality. Here, every turn of the wheel is a direct gamble with death. The line between survival and disaster is as thin as a tire mark. To the left, razor-sharp cliffs. To the right, an endless void. From trails swallowed by violent waves to curves hanging high among the clouds, these roads can freeze the blood in your veins. They may look like the mad strokes of creation, but they are absolutely real. Hold the wheel tight. This journey through deadly roads begins now. And the final road in this video will make your heart skip a beat. There are roads built to connect cities, but there are also roads that seem to exist purely to test human courage. Skipper's Canyon Road in New Zealand is one such place. A road that looks like someone hastily carved a thin line into a massive rocky mountainside with a blade. Looking down from above, it resembles a dusty thread suspended over the edge of the Shotover Canyon. Located about 12 miles, 20 kilometers from Queenstown, the road branches off the route leading to the Coronet Peak ski area. It was carved out during the 19th century gold rush, when reckless miners chipped away at the rock foot by foot to forge a path into the canyon. Much like tiny ants slowly gnawing away at Mother Nature's massive wall. Traces of that era still lie scattered along the route. Old gold mining relics, and notably, the Skipper's Canyon Suspension Bridge, which makes many people's knees go weak just by looking down. At the Pinch's Bluff section, the cliffs squeeze in so tightly that the road looks caught between two giant rocky jaws. As if the mountain only needs to take a slight bite for the road to disappear completely. The road surface is mostly gravel and incredibly narrow, with many sections barely wide enough for a single car to squeeze through. A sheer cliff on one side, an abyssal void on the other. Just a few inches off course, and it feels like stepping off the edge of a balcony hundreds of feet in the air. Perhaps that's why most rental car companies strictly prohibit their customers from driving on this route. Not because they hate adventure, but because they prefer seeing their vehicles return in one piece. Currently, the main suspension bridge is temporarily closed for maintenance. So sightseeing requires taking shorter alternative routes. But even when navigating the safer sections, Skipper's Canyon still makes you feel like you are moving along the edge of a giant natural painting, where breathtaking beauty always comes with a silent question. Is this fragile road truly meant for humans, or just for those daring enough to push their luck with heights? If Skipper's Canyon makes you feel like you're driving on the edge of a cliff, the Atlantic Ocean Road in Norway offers an entirely different sensation. As if the road itself is playing hide and seek with the ocean. From a bird's eye view, this 5-mile, 8-kilometer stretch looks like a string of softly curving bridges draped across tiny islands scattered in the Atlantic Ocean. But when you stand right on the pavement, the scenery takes on a different tone. Howling sea winds, white-capped waves crashing against the rocky shores, and the road ahead slithering like a snake across the water's surface. Completed in 1989, after years of construction and battling over a dozen major storms, the Atlantic Ocean Road is not just a transportation route. It feels more like a dialogue between human engineering and nature's defiance. The standout feature is the Storrsundet Bridge. A bridge so curved that from a certain angle, it looks as if the road simply drops off into mid-air. Many first-time visitors have wondered whether they are driving onto a highway or stepping into an architect's practical joke. But don't let its cinematic beauty fool you. The Atlantic isn't always gentle. When northern storms roll in, the waves can swell high enough to crash right over the bridge deck, turning this road into a stage where wind and water show off their raw power. At that point, driving across feels like trying to balance on a giant water slide, while someone repeatedly splashes seawater in your face. Yet it is exactly this wildness that gives the Atlantic Ocean Road its unique magnetic pull. On one side, the silvery grey ocean stretches to the horizon. On the other, tiny rocky islands protrude from the water, like silent sentinels. And the road sits right in the middle, winding, proud, like a bold stroke of humanity painted onto the ocean's massive canvas. Driving here is more than just a journey. It's like being part of an epic nature documentary where you are both the audience and the main character heading straight into the center stage of the sea. After a road clinging to a cliff in New Zealand and another twisting through the stormy Atlantic in Norway, our journey now takes a turn to a very different place. A place where the road doesn't just face the elements, but cuts straight through thousands of years of history. This is the Khyber Pass in Pakistan. This roughly 33-mile, 53-kilometers mountain pass is located in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. Connecting Jamrud near Peshawar to the Torkham border crossing with Afghanistan. If the Atlantic Ocean Road is a daring bridge across the sea, the Khyber Pass is like an ancient doorway left by nature between colossal walls of stone. The route cuts through the Spin Gar, also known as the White Mountains. The mountains here are barren and sheer, looking like colossal fortress walls built by nature long before mankind ever thought of paving a road. And right between those walls lies a narrow gorge, a small passageway. Yet significant enough to alter the history of the entire region. For centuries, caravans of merchants, travelers, and conquering armies have marched through this very spot. If the cliffs of the Khyber Pass could talk, they would be incredibly busy historians, because the sheer volume of stories they hold could fill a library. The pass reaches an elevation of about 3,500 feet, 1,070 meters, at Landi Kotal. That number might sound modest compared to other famous mountain passes, but the terrain here presents its own unique brand of challenge. The tight hairpin turns and sections weaving through the mountain slopes make driving feel like trying to thread a needle through a massive rocky corridor built by nature. That's just a bit too snug. As your vehicle pushes deeper into the pass, the feeling is distinct. Unlike modern highways built to conquer nature, The Khyber Pass makes you feel as though you are driving through an ancient gateway to Asia, where every bend not only leads you to the other side of the mountain, but also takes you through countless layers of history. Leaving behind the ancient gorge of the Khyber Pass, where history still seems to whisper among the cliffs, our journey continues even higher. This time, not among the arid mountains of Asia, but amidst the towering peaks of the French Alps. There lies a road that leaves many first-time viewers asking one very honest question. Who on earth thought of building a road way up there? That is the Col de la Bonette. This mountain pass sits between the Alpes Maritimes and Alpes de Haute-Provence regions, near the Italian border. The route connects the Ubai Valley to the Tine Valley, steadily climbing to an altitude of 8,907 feet. Before reaching the famous loop around the Cime de la Bonette, where the asphalt touches 9,192 feet, making it the highest paved road in France. From a distance, the road looks like a thin grey ribbon carelessly dropped onto the mountainside. But as you climb higher, the scenery begins to change in a rather peculiar way. Vegetation gradually vanishes, and the lush green gives way to silvery grey boulders. No more forests, no more villages, just wind, rocks, and curves hugging the mountain. Many say this place looks more like the surface of the moon than a road on Earth. If NASA were looking for a place to practice driving on Mars, they might want to consider the Col de la Bonette. It is exactly this harsh terrain that has made the pass one of the most legendary hill climbs in the Tour de France. For cyclists, it is practically a test of willpower. A long, grueling incline, thin air, and a cold wind blowing straight into your face. The kind of terrain that makes your legs start asking, do we really need to go up this high? Scattered along the road are military ruins from the Maginot Line, sitting quietly amidst the rocks and wind like retired sentinels from a bygone era. And as your car navigates the final few corners, the sensation becomes quite surreal. The road no longer seems to cling to the mountain, but rather feels like it's floating between earth and sky. A delicate stroke drawn through the clouds, where just looking down is enough to remind yourself. Keeping a firm grip on the steering wheel is probably a very wise idea. After roads hanging off cliffs, snaking through the ocean, and scaling the peaks of the Alps, you might think our journey has reached the limits of altitude. But in the Himalayas, the concept of high is just a number, and there is always room to go higher. In the Ladakh region of India, there is a road so incredibly high that many people stepping out of their cars share a very interesting experience. Before they even have time to be afraid of heights, their lungs gently start to protest. This is Khardung La. Located about 25 miles, 40 to 42 kilometers from the town of Leh, this pass serves as a gateway connecting Leh to the Nubra and Shyok valleys. Sitting at an elevation of roughly 17,582 to over 18,300 feet, Khardung La is often cited as one of the highest motorable passes in the world. To put it simply, if roads down below feel like driving on the ground, this road feels like a test to see just how close humans can drive to the sky. The higher you go, the more surreal the landscape becomes. Endless snow-capped mountain ranges, colorful prayer flags fluttering wildly in the wind, and a road winding along the mountainside like a fragile silver thread draped over massive boulders. From afar, it looks so delicate that it makes you wonder if nature accidentally left this path behind, or is only temporarily allowing it to exist. At this altitude, the biggest challenge sometimes isn't the hairpin turns or the icy road. It's the thin air. Just taking a few brisk steps can make you feel like you've just sprinted up 3 flights of stairs, even if you're only walking over to take a picture. And because of that, the most delightful detail at the summit is the Rinchen cafeteria, considered the highest cafe in the world. Here, a hot cup of tea doesn't just warm your hands, it brings a small sense of triumph, like, I just drove near the roof of the world. and I'm at least still coherent enough to drink tea. Of course, Khardung is not a road for a relaxing Sunday drive. Ice, snow, biting winds, and tight mountain curves demand absolute concentration. For many motorcycle touring enthusiasts, conquering Khardung is like a rite of passage. The kind of challenge where, once completed, you feel both incredibly proud and slightly questionable of your own sanity for deciding to climb that high. Because in this place, the road doesn't just cross mountains, it feels like a thin thread that humanity recklessly strung between the highest peaks on Earth. But if you think the roads on the roof of the Himalayas were the ultimate challenge, just wait until we encounter another road, where the entire mountain seems to have been bent in the most unbelievable way. Leaving behind the cloud-touching heights of Khardung, where just a few quick steps prompt your lungs to remind you we're a bit too high up. Our journey moves on to another mountain range on this planet. And this time, the road doesn't just climb the mountain, it seems to wrap around it like a colossal spring. Welcome to Los Caracoles Pass in Chile. The name Los Caracoles means snails in Spanish. And one look from above is all it takes to understand why. This road sits in the Andes, near the Chile-Argentina border, part of the International Route 60. It climbs to an altitude of about 10,400 feet, 3,175 meters. But what makes this place famous isn't just the elevation. It's the way the road twists itself up the mountainside. On the main incline, there are 29 sharp switchbacks, stacked on top of each other like a gigantic staircase for cars. From a distance, the entire road looks as if someone accidentally dropped a massive metal coil down the slope of the Andes. And then decided, well, might as well turn it into a road. But what makes this place even more nerve-wracking is the lack of safety barriers on many sections. A sheer cliff on one side, a plunging abyss on the other. And just to add a little spice for the heart, this road is a vital transport artery, meaning massive cargo trucks are constantly crawling up and down these very curves. You can only imagine what it's like when two massive trucks meet in the middle of a narrow hairpin turn. It's a moment where both drivers appear incredibly calm, while probably thinking to themselves, "Sure hope the next curve is a little wider." The weather at Los Caracoles is also wildly unpredictable. Heavy snowfall in the winter, fierce winds sweeping across the slopes, and road surfaces that sometimes become as slick as a giant ice rink. Yet, it is precisely these elements that make it one of the most spectacular mountain roads in the Andes. Seen from above, the endless switchbacks truly resemble a giant snail slowly creeping up the mountain. And as your car begins to weave through each loop, you realize something quite fascinating. Sometimes, a road doesn't just take you higher. It makes you feel like you are scaling the very back of a giant mountain. Very slowly, very windingly, and with your heart beating just a little bit faster. After the giant, spring-like twists of Los Caracoles, many might think the roads of the Andes are enough to keep any driver's nerves stretched tight. But our journey isn't over yet. Because on the other side of the globe, there exists a mountain pass where just looking at the road gives you the sensation that the Earth itself is tilting up toward the sky. That is the Sani Pass, located between South Africa and Lesotho. This road climbs through the Drakensberg Mountains, reaching an altitude of nearly 9,500 feet, 2,900 meters. But what makes Sani Pass truly memorable isn't just the height. It's the way the road crawls up the mountainside via slopes that are practically vertical. From afar, it looks like a thin crack in the cliff face. The kind of crack that makes you wonder if cars really belong up there. Unlike many other mountain roads, Sani Pass is mostly dirt and gravel. Treacherous when it rains, and full of thick mud when the weather turns bad. For this reason, only 4x4 vehicles are capable of conquering the final ascent. A section locals simply refer to as the wall. And that name isn't much of a metaphor. Because when your vehicle begins to tackle that final stretch, the feeling is sometimes akin to trying to drive up a slope that was really meant for mountain goats. But once you conquer that stretch, the reward appears right before your eyes. The vast highlands of Lesotho, sprawling out under the cold blue African sky. And up there, you realize something interesting. Sometimes the most dangerous road isn't the highest one. It's the one that makes you question whether your car actually wants to make the climb at all. If the previous 7 roads haven't quite made you grip the steering wheel a little tighter, then our next destination might just change your mind. Because this time, the challenge doesn't lie in sheer cliffs, sharp switchbacks, or cloud-piercing altitudes. The challenge lies in the terrifyingly vast expanse of the desert. This is the Canning Stock Route in Australia, one of the longest and most desolate off-road tracks in the world. This route stretches for nearly 1,100 miles, 1,800 kilometers, cutting straight through the vast red deserts of Western Australia. If the previous roads were like delicate pencil strokes on a mountainside, the Canning Stock Route is like a long, deep gash right through the heart of the desert. The trail was established in the early 20th century to drive cattle across the arid landscape. And to this day, it retains almost all of its original, untamed wilderness. On a map, the route is just a simple line. But in reality, the journey here is a relentless sequence of towering sand dunes, deep sandy tracks, and a scorching heat that can simultaneously test your vehicle's engine and the driver's patience. Out here, there are no gas stations, no towns, and sometimes you won't see another soul for hundreds of miles. That is exactly why many say driving the Canning Stock Route is like sailing across an ocean. Only this ocean is made of red sand instead of water. And as your vehicle continues to push toward the distant horizon, you realize something rather profound. Out here, the road doesn't just lead you through a desert, it makes you feel as though you are driving on another planet, where the world feels vastly larger and far wilder than anything we are used to. The next stop on our journey brings us to a road where just looking down from the top is enough to make many people feel dizzy. This is Trollstigen, otherwise known as Norway's Troll's Path. Located in the Møre or Romsdal region, this scenic route opened in 1936 and quickly became one of the most spectacular mountain passes in Northern Europe. Trollstigen is famous for its 11 hairpin turns that cling tightly to the steep mountainside, snaking down into the valley like a thin grey ribbon draped across the cliffs. Right alongside the road runs the Stigfossen waterfall, plunging roughly 1,050 feet, 320 meters, down the mountain like a strip of white silk amidst the majestic alpine scenery. From the observation deck at the summit, the entire road reveals itself as a tiny labyrinth nestled between colossal mountain peaks. The kind of sight that makes you want to snap a photo, while your hands tremble slightly at the thought of driving down it. The name Trollstigen is deeply tied to Viking folklore, where it was believed that trolls, the mythical giants of Norse legend, once roamed these mountains before sunlight turned them to stone. And as your car slowly navigates each bend, the sensation is quite unique. That tiny road looks like a secret pathway the trolls might have used to descend the mountain. The only difference is that today, instead of mythical giants, it's cars and tour buses putting their steering skills to the ultimate test on every curve. The journey along the Manali highway is not just a trip, but a true test of human limits against the grandeur of nature. The thin air at altitudes above 4,000 meters makes every breath feel more deliberate, as if reminding you that you've stepped into another world. Harsh, yet mesmerizing. Dusty, frost-covered milestones line the road, marking each hard-earned kilometer conquered by travelers. From time to time, you'll encounter resilient trucks slowly climbing steep inclines, like silent warriors of the mountains. As the sun begins to set, golden light washes over the peaks, reflecting off the rugged road and creating a scene that is both majestic and eerily calm. In that moment, everything seems to fall silent, leaving only the sound of wind whistling through the valleys and the steady rhythm of your heartbeat in sync with the moving vehicle. And then you realize what truly matters is not the destination, but the feeling of being small yet completely free in the vastness of nature. where humans are merely passing travelers between Earth and sky. At certain stretches, the road seems to disappear into a horizon painted in shades of blue and white, where sky and snow blur into one endless canvas. Along the way, small roadside camps and temporary shelters offer brief moments of rest. Places where travelers share stories, warm their hands over simple meals, and prepare themselves for the next demanding leg of the journey. Prayer flags flutter wildly in the wind, their colors fading, but their presence deeply symbolic, as if carrying whispers of hope and protection across the mountains. There are moments when the silence becomes overwhelming, broken only by the crunch of tires against gravel or the distant rumble of falling rocks. In those fleeting seconds, time feels suspended, and the outside world seems impossibly far away. Every turn brings a new perspective. Another valley, another towering peak, another reminder of nature's raw and untamed power. And yet, despite the danger and isolation, there is an undeniable sense of peace that settles in. It is a rare kind of tranquility, found only in places where the world feels untouched, and where the journey itself becomes a story you will carry for the rest of your life. From the sheer cliffs of New Zealand and the ocean bridges of Norway to the spiraling curves of the Andes and the cloud-touching roads of the Himalayas, each place makes one thing crystal clear. Humanity will always find a way to forge a path, even in places where it seems impossible to lay down a tire. These roads are not just transportation routes. They are ongoing dialogues between human audacity and the raw power of nature. And who knows, somewhere out there on this vast planet, there might be other roads, even stranger, more dangerous, and more spectacular, just waiting to be discovered.